Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar discussing a woman's perspective and journey into autosports. I thought we'd start off by going around and introducing ourselves. I'll start with myself. My name is Megan Tomlinson. I'm 23 years old. I currently work in marketing. And going into this season, I'm going to be racing a Honda Civic Si FE1 in the FEL TCA class with the SportsCar Championship of Canada. And yeah, let's move on to Erica.
Hey guys, so my name is Erica and I'm from Ottawa, and this past year I raced a McLaren 570S GT4 car in the UK's GT Cup Championship, and then this next year I'll be racing again with Formula Woman. So that's kind of how we're all somewhat connected, is we've all participated in Formula Woman and all made it decently far in the competition. And in the 2021-2022 year, I ended up winning the entire thing, which was pretty great for me, and got to get myself in a pretty cool ride for that season. And we're still going with it for this next year as well.
Nora,
Sure.
Yeah, Nora can go.
I'm 19. I actually just moved to Ottawa for racing. This year I'll be racing a production car in the Super Production Challenge, which is one of the biggest non-homologated series here in Canada. And I'm really excited to see what the season's going to unfold for me.
All right, now it's my turn. Hello, I'm Alana Carter. I'm 23 years old. Similar kind of story to Nora. I moved from Edmonton to Toronto to pursue motorsports a little bit more. I work in marketing for a car club in Toronto called Our Club. And this season, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a combination of things. So I'm going to be racing with Formula Woman in the UK a little bit. And I'm also driving the Scalar Performance SCR1, which is the first fully electric amateur touring car. So that's going to be interesting.
how does that go with the electric cars then and regulations?
So the interesting thing is because they're not totally sure how to deal with electric cars just yet. We are allowed to run in the gas series, so we're actually running in the super touring class in NASA. And pretty much as of right now, our car is the only electric car that's allowed to run. It's that's the rule that they made, is they're like, it's too complicated to let other people. It's just the Scalar car that can run. So it'll be a good time.
Do you think it'll be competitive versus the gas cars?
I do think so. I'm really, really excited to see how the instant electric torque compares. I feel there'll be, I might have the opportunity to kind of gap people exiting corners. But at the same time, we'll see. It's kind of a development year. It's the car's first year actually racing competitively. So we're just testing, developing all throughout the season, and I get to be involved in it. So I'm excited.
Awesome. So I guess let's go around the table and kind of talk about our paths into motorsports. Erica, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, so I grew up always interested in motorsports, but I didn't have any real connection to it. It seemed like that was something people did far away in Europe, and I didn't realize it was something that I could be connected to. I remember watching this go-karting movie when I was a kid of these karters in the States, and I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. And my family was like, yeah, that's sick. Did you see how it bankrupted those families? We cannot afford to put you in karting. So it was something I was always super interested in. My family loved watching motorsports, but was not very connected to it. But then as I got older and I got my driver's license, I was so drawn to driving and I wanted to do more. I was just rolling down the street and I was like, this can't be it. I want more out of a car. So through a strange series of events, with my dad picking up oil someplace, he found out about Calabogie Motorsports Park, and I pretty much just cold called them. I sent an email to the track manager and was like, hi, my name's Erica. I want to drive. I have no idea how to get involved at all. Please help. And so then they ended up connecting me with Calabogie Motorsports Park. I went out, did some laps, and my own car, which is a Super Z track, did race through that.
Are we losing her?
I think she froze on us.
Yeah.
Give her a second, she'll come back.
Right. Maybe we'll quickly step on to Nora while we wait for Erica to come back.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of got into motorsport pretty different way than a lot of people. I wasn't necessarily interested in racing cars my whole life. I was really interested in planes and all that kind of like high powered anything, really anything that went fast, anything maneuverable, anything fun. I actually started getting my pilot's license at the end of grade 12. We were online learning. I didn't really have anything else to pass the time with, so I started working on my license there. And at that point, I'd kind of gotten a taste for taking my life into my own hands and seeing what really was out there beyond the traditional path. And I reached out to some family and was like, hey, like, I think I want to race. Like, I think I want to make a career out of doing something a little bit crazy, really. And it just so happened that my aunt knew someone that owned a karting team here in Ottawa. And I graduated high school, moved in with her and started karting. And it's been a real whirlwind ever since. I was racing competitively in karts for 2 years until I got the opportunity to try out for Formula Woman. And that was really just this past August. So I haven't had too much experience in a car, but I think, and my big mantra has been, it's really what you put into the sport. It's not necessarily how long you've been involved and how much money you have, but you can really go far by being dedicated and working hard and kind of being that person that shows up when no one else does. When it's raining at the track, you don't go home, you got to be pushing. So it's kind of been my mantra and my outlook on it. And I've just been pushing ever since. And recently I've been able to take it to Formula Woman in the UK. And I actually just got back from Florida in January testing with Spec in one of their radicals. So it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, yeah, I've been loving every moment of it.
Would you say, like, what were the major challenges and barriers you faced kind of going from karting to cars, and what opened up that pathway for you?
Yeah, I think going from karting to cars is a huge step, and everyone kind of accepts it as this big financial jump, and all the skills they're transferable, absolutely, but there's a lot you have to take into account when you're making that jump. And I think finding a good community and a good team to work with is 100% like the reason I was able to make the jump. I started working with Apex V2R when we were looking at training for Formula Woman, and they got me in the simulator and they got me like the mental stability, the mental strength you needed to start working in a car and being in there for those long periods of time. You just kind of got to jump in head first. And I had such a good community. I had like a good team, a good crew. And I think your team and your crew are absolutely the biggest part of being in racing right now.
Awesome. Erica, we lost you a little bit there.
I'm so sorry.
Keep going.
I'm now hotspotting off my phone, so hopefully we do not have technical difficulties again. Do you want me to continue with where I left off?
Yeah,
Okay,
perfect.
so I don't really know where I cut off because I was talking for a while at all of your frozen faces for a few seconds there. So pretty much my beginning was at Cal Boogie, then did my development through Formula Woman and got into driving this past year in the GT Cup, which was quite a big jump from going from just driving your daily driver to all of a sudden being in a field with GT3 cars, GT4 cars. But it was also very exciting to all of a sudden be at my dream level of getting to drive a McLaren. And I learned so much throughout the season. And it was also a very encouraging and empowering season just to see how quickly we were able to compete and rise up throughout the field. So that's kind of my unconventional way of all of a sudden being in a very cool position within racing.
And like, how many other females were there racing in that series?
So there was my teammate, Jody, and then we had a sister car that had two other female drivers who are also part of the Formula Woman team. And then in another class from us, in a Super Trofeo, there was another female team. So a decent amount, actually, in terms of motorsport, to have 6 female drivers on the grid. So that was really encouraging to see that movement. We definitely more than doubled showing up with the amount of women we had. And it was really cool because the team we were running with also has a lot of women working for the team, which we're seeing more and more within motorsports. And it's so encouraging to see women getting involved in all aspects and being such core members of a crew as well.
What would you say, as a female, as a woman, the major challenges and barriers and maybe turning points were in on your
path? In terms of, I think for me, especially being in a unique position within motorsports, there was more questions on whether we would be competitive enough within the field, that we were going up against a lot of way more experienced drivers. And especially being new within that world and being a bunch of young women, I feel like there was more stigma against us, and there was like, we'll see how they do. And there was a lot of comments made before we actually raced about whether we were prepared to be in the position we were. Thankfully, once we started racing, we had a lot of people kind of apologize or come up to us and be like, wow, like that's crazy impressive how you've been performing compared to what we thought. This is fantastic to see more women on the grid. And so it really dissipated once we had our performance and once they saw how well we were doing. So I think it was more the expectations that were leveraged against us and just the assumptions made before, which I think was also just due to us being fairly new. That was the whole nature of the competition. You couldn't be a professional driver coming into it. They wanted to find raw talent. They want to find people they can shape into race winning drivers. So whenever you're new to any sport, whether you're male or female, there is that level of having to prove yourself. So it was harder before we could prove ourselves. But then once we were in the mix and competing well and performing really well, then a lot of that went away and we just got our heads down, kept learning, and we're just other drivers on the grid.
Awesome. Do any of you other girls find that preconceived expectations can provide like a kind of limiting view, but once you get out there and prove yourself, it kind of switches?
I would say like absolutely, but at the same time, it can be kind of frustrating because it's almost like they're looking for confirmation bias. So when you succeed, it's like, haha, look what I'm actually capable of, and you earn everyone's respect. But say you didn't, then they're like, oh, well, you did exactly what we expected you to do. So it's almost like we're not allowed to fail. We're not allowed to have that trial and error process because we're already under the microscope, which is a frustrating point, but it just, I guess, motivates us to work 10 times harder so that we're ready to perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think any girls in racing can agree that when you say, oh, like I'm a racing driver, it's anyone, they immediately think that, oh, we should go karting and I would definitely beat you. You know, people automatically kind of assume that they're going to be better than you just because you're a woman. I think you just need to kind of work to be mentally tough and kind of just like take those ideas and like push them out and just show what you're capable of in any situation.
I think the nice thing though is that like it's getting easier, at least for me. And when you find good communities where people are super accepting, it's like at our club, we go karting all the time, and everyone's first thing is they're like, oh, Alana's going to be the person to beat. And everyone's like framing their record sheet if they beat me because it's a big deal. So it's kind of cool that like they don't care that I'm a woman or not. They know that I'm going to be the competitive one. So it's getting easier, I find.
Yeah. And I would say that as time has gone on, even within my limited span within motorsports, it is becoming, you're seeing more and more women, you're seeing more and more support for women. And you also have the flip side of that, of people who are advocating for you, especially because they want to see more women in the sport, which I think is very fortunate for us, and just very encouraging to see. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of people who will be cheering for you because of just the position you're in, being a new demographic within the sport, and that they want to see more equality and within the industry.
So Alana, like Erica, was the Formula Woman winner this year. I don't know if you want to tell us a bit about that story and how you got there.
Well, I mean, the cool thing is that you guys were involved in it. Like, we went on this whole journey together, and it was, I would say, a very unique feeling for me to meet a bunch of women that I know at the end of the day are my competitors, but like, we literally became best friends. And it sounds so cheesy, but we did. And I'm like, it was a really interesting feeling that, like, so for those of you who don't know, we got narrowed down to the final 50 of us went to the UK together. Megan, Nora, and myself were part of that group. So we're all coming from North America. We all shared hotels together, naturally just hung out together. And they then narrowed us down to the top 10. And it was like, it was the weirdest feeling because I was the only one of the North Americans to make it. And I was like so excited for myself, but sad for my friends. And my friends were like kind of sad, but so excited for me. And it was like, I don't know which emotion to feel right now. But it was a really interesting experience. And I'm really excited to be the newest driver on the team and to be joining Erica with Formula Woman. I think it's a very, very beneficial program because they help us overcome all of the barriers that we are very aware women are facing and have faced in motorsports. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes.
It's also kind of crazy, like the community that they've created of females who are interested in motorsports. Like now I have over 100 contacts of females who are interested in motorsports, which is something like I never thought I would have.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And it's really neat how like supportive and inclusive the community is. Like, never once did I feel like someone didn't like me because I won or something. Like, everyone was genuinely like happy and supportive and so kind. Like, I can still talk to anyone who went to the finals and it's all good vibes.
Apart from like topics we've already spoke on, what kind of things have you guys found to be limiting for women involved in motorsports? I know.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think just in general, I'm seeing more and more, we're just getting more women into the sport, which is fantastic. And as that grows, then it allows more space for other women to see themselves represented. I remember one of the first times that I did like a big interview for Formula Woman and I was on TV, and then afterwards I got all these DMs and I had people contacting me being like, oh, I didn't realize that this was available for women. I had this one woman who was in her 60s who messaged me saying like, hey, I just saw you on the news. I grew up around racing. My dad raced, my brothers raced. I was at the track every weekend. And then she said, until this moment, it didn't occur to me that I could have been racing. I had never seen any females driving. I didn't realize it was an option for me. And she just already had that bias and that limitation for herself just because she hadn't seen other women within the sport. She didn't see herself represented at all. And we can see that throughout media in a lot of different ways. You can see how that affects people when they don't see themselves represented. So I think it's really encouraging that now it's kind of a snowball effect. Once people see, oh, I can do that, then more and more people are like, okay, I can do that. And there is that interest. I think there's generally more men interested in motorsports than women, but once women can see themselves in that place, it's becoming like people are coming out of the woodwork. There's more and more people who are wanting to get involved. And I think that just makes it easier for more and more women to step forward and be like, this is something I'm passionate about and would want to be involved with. And I even think just in terms of women bringing their car to the track, becoming more confident drivers, just wheeling like their daily driver at the track or whatever. It's encouraging to see that growth in the people are having more confidence to get involved and be putting themselves in the driver's seat.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I completely agree. I think the representation is the biggest thing because it's literally like the widest spread thing. Representation matters no matter who you are. You need to be able to see someone doing it in order to be able to like actually envision yourself doing it. That being said, I think also like just the like preconceptions and the fact that when the people who were some of the first women to get into motorsports, they were not welcomed with open arms, and people are getting a lot cooler about it, a lot more supportive. And now there's also more women in the industry supporting other women. Like we can help mentor each other and help support each other through the processes where like, yeah, it kind of sucked when I mean, I didn't experience it personally because it's older, but like I imagine it would have really sucked for the women who were trying to race in an era when like women were supposed to be in the kitchen, you know?
Mm-hmm. And to kind of like jump off of Alana's idea of community and like that within racing is like the community we have of female drivers is fantastic. Like we were saying about the Formula Women competition, we were all competitors, absolutely, and everyone was there to do their best. But at the end of the day, like we all went out to dinner together, and it was like first dinner I've ever had with a group of girls, and we could talk about motorsport, and like all of us were very interested in the same thing, and we kind of faced the same barriers, so it didn't feel so like restricting. I think that's a fantastic thing about being a woman in a male-dominated sport is everyone really wants to help you do well, and like even you can even reach out to some of your role models in NASCAR Xfinity Series and like Formula 1600, and some of the girls that are racing in the bigger series. They're always like willing to lend a hand and let you know like little insights of how they got through tough times, and everyone in this sport is just so fantastic. So yeah, it's pretty fantastic little community we have.
If you were to reach out to anybody, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. Before I even started karting, like when I still lived in Winnipeg, my team owner at the time connected me with a female driver, Megan Gilks. She races British GP4 over obviously in the UK, and she'd been working in karting. She'd worked with the team I was going on to, and I was really excited to get to know someone and kind of like get to know her journey and see where I could see myself and how I could envision my path. And she's been fantastic. She's been my rock all throughout my career. Every time I have something big happening, I text her, and every time she has something big, she texts me, and it's this beautiful little like relationship you can build with people in motorsport, and like everyone's excited for you. For the most part, like all the women in racing that I've met, like they see you doing well and they want to be a part of that. They want to be involved. Like all the girls I had messaging me after we posted this yesterday, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to like tune in and see what's going on with your career and all your friends' careers. And it's fantastic. Yeah. So definitely Megan. She's huge for me.
Anyone else have female role models that they would like to speak to? Or male?
Within sport, I think I also have a lot of inspiration from female athletes who are competing just globally. So whether it's like our women's soccer team or pro snowboarders or any female athletes, I think because there's so few women in motorsport, it's also cool to see their stories and see parallels within their careers. But exactly what Nora said, as you get more involved in this industry, you start seeing more and more, and your Instagram learns that you like to follow women drivers and like sends them your way and stuff. And it's cool to see all these different avenues and the ways that there's progress being made. And just to see other people being able to experience success in their careers and work hard. I mean, all know the challenges that face women drivers are slightly different than when you're just a normal male driver. You just have a little bit less of a community in a sense. So it's cool to see exactly what Nora said, that then we can connect with each other and you kind of have a stronger connection with other female drivers just because you're like, oh, my sister, there's not a lot of us here, you know? So it's a fun kind of friendship you can build.
I also found that on social media. As soon as I started looking, it was there. But like if I wasn't searching for female race car drivers or following them, like it wasn't just being shown to me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. My like explore feed is all female race car drivers now. Like I felt like
now too. It's insane.
Yeah, I felt like maybe 2 years ago I was like, there's very few of us in the world, and now I'm like, there are so many more of us than I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you guys think that we could do or women can do themselves to help increase the women in motorsports in North America and awareness and grow this community?
Mhm. Well, one thing that I encourage people to do if they're interested in motorsports at all is to just try at whatever level they're at. So I find that a lot of times, especially as women, people will put limitations on themselves or be like, oh, I have to be this good before I can compete, or I have to have all these things in place. I have to have my car has to be perfect. I have to have all this funding. They'll put limitations on ourselves. And I think there's even all these studies done on women in terms of like how qualified they feel like they need to be before they can apply to a job versus men. And it's just we put all these unnecessary limitations on ourselves before we're willing to step out. And it's kind of vulnerable to step out and to try something new, especially if it's something that you care about. I find that that's like twofold. I found I was more apprehensive to get involved in motorsport because I really wanted to be good at it. And I was like, oh, but if I suck, I was like, that's going to be heartbreaking. You know, I really want to be good. So you kind of hold yourself back. Whereas a lot of times men have a slightly less disposition for this. Again, this is generalizing, but they'll be like, yeah, let's give it a go. Let's try. So I think that that's something that that I try to encourage women to do is don't wait until you think you're ready for it. Just like go to a track. The first car I ever drove on track was a 2009 Hyundai Accent. So mad horsepower there, but I was doing it. You know what I mean? Like, and everyone was so supportive. I thought I was going to be like, so awkward rolling up at the track with this and everyone else has their actual cars. And I was pretty much, I think I was the only girl that day that I showed up at the track the first time, but everyone was so supportive. They were like, we're so glad you're here. They're like, that's sick. You just brought what you could. And you become a better driver when you're driving gutless cars, you know, it teaches you a lot. So I think one thing is to just encourage people to get started and to also not think that they're too late. Be like, oh, I didn't start when I was 5, so I can't do it. Where like who cares, like whatever. Like I brought my mom to a track day and she was all like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, come on, just like go have fun, you'll grow, you'll learn. And she had a great time. And I think that that's the key, is just don't put all this pressure and expectations on yourself. Just go try it, go learn. And just creating that environment of this is a welcoming place, this is a place where you can just have fun and grow your skills.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. The first car that I ever drove on a like actual road course was a diesel Golf. So no one would expect that to be a track day car, a diesel Golf on all season tires. So
Let's
yeah,
go.
like just take what you've got and just get out there. Truthfully, as Erica said, you're going to learn a lot more in your lower end car than you are in something with a lot of horsepower. And just kind of like similar with Erica's note, the biggest piece of advice that I've ever been given, just like in life general, but it applies to motorsports so much, is you don't get what you don't ask for. And like literally just ask for things and like stuff starts to just happen if you're there and you're present and you've got a good attitude. Because like, I mean, there's science showing that women often get paid less than men because we're afraid to ask for it. So just like ask for it. Sometimes I think I'm starting to become a pain in the butt because I ask for everything, but it seems to be working out well in my favor. So just, yeah, be brave. Know what you're worth, and the worst that anyone can ever say is no.
Yeah, absolutely. Know your worth, be brave, jump right in. I think especially with social media and being such a big part of racing, people think they have to have all this content scheduled and all these things, like super impressive things, just to like start posting and start getting engagement on social media. And I think especially with the world we live in now, it's not entirely true. Some people want to see the raw behind the scenes of what you were doing yesterday for training and how you've been working hard outside of the track, right? It's the off season, but there's still so much work being put in. I know Megan, Alana, Erica, and I have all been working really hard behind the scenes to get our seasons together, and people want to see that. And I think kind of thinking like, again, putting that pressure on yourself to be perfect right out the gate is just not fair. You need to kind of accept where you are in that moment and use where you came from to further yourself, because people want to know, people want to see that.
talking about putting together seasons, personally, I was very lucky as my father was already a part of a race team. So it's pretty simple for me to piece that together. But so I know Nora, you're still searching for a car this year. I don't know how that's going, like how that process is. Same with Alana, who just signed with Scalar.
Yeah, so me and some friends are looking to run a super production challenge together. We're just working on finishing touches, getting the car ready to run, not necessarily top of the boards, but definitely get the experience and get everything we need together to have a great season and really enjoy the journey, because that's what it's all about. Racing, obviously there's the big end goal. You want to race in a funded series and you want to be the driver that you kind of want as a role model for other people, but you need to get that experience first, and you need to start building that foundation, the strong foundation that's going to get you far. And that's what we're working on this year. So I'm really excited to get into it.
Second half of the question was for me, right?
Yeah.
So for my season, I guess was the question like how it came together?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mine was really interesting. So the guys who own Scalar are good friends of mine. They are members at our club where I work. And the funny thing is that in like September, was it September? Last minute, they were like, hey, can you come be the Stig for our promo shoot? And I drove the car at like 20 kilometers an hour while we made it look fast. It was awesome. And then the image just kind of worked really well. And a few weeks ago, they asked me if I wanted to drive the car like for the actual full season, which worked out great because I already have all the promotion material.
There you go.
Yeah, so that was just an opportunity that I'm very, very grateful for. It's so unique. Our goal for the season is just going to be like promoting and pushing the car as much as possible, which is the perfect thing I could ask for as a young developing driver.
I find this really interesting. Like as soon as you kind of step into the industry, you form relationships that can then help guide you on the path, whichever way you want to go.
It's stuff that like you could never ask for until it happens. Like you don't know that it exists. And it's why networking is one of the most important things ever, because the best things that'll happen to you are the stuff that just like happens. Like it just happens in front of you and you're like, oh, I couldn't have bought this if I wanted to, you know?
I guess, do we want to open it up to the audience if they have any questions?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I guess if you have a question, you can just unmute yourselves. Or if you have a comment or something that you have seen, I think also if you have experience within motorsport and you want to share something or jump in or tag on to the topic we've already covered, then in addition to just having questions.
Rowan, your mic is up. Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go.
You've all mentioned that there is a scarcity of mentors. What do you feel you can do individually or collectively to create a group of mentors who can assist? And I know this may seem a little premature, the next generation, given your current ages, but the next generation of female drivers.
I think this also kind of ties into the programs that are currently being developed, like say by F1 and the Heart of Racing and the PNC Bank initiative. There's a lot of initiatives coming out for female drivers, but almost we need female drivers as a group to get together and kind of help mentor and form that path, right? I think Women in Motorsports is also doing a lot to try to guide this. Do you guys have any input on things we can do?
Well, I think one of the cool things that actually Formula Woman is doing already is they've got a junior academy set up. They're trying to help provide a lot of like free and low cost resources for women to work with and to try to like figure out their path on their own. But yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, I think honestly, one of the biggest things and best things, easiest things we could all start doing and keep doing, because I know we have been, is just sharing experiences. Because getting into the sport is difficult. Racing is cutthroat, and you need to kind of see that you're not the only one struggling sometimes. And motorsport isn't glamorous. You know, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff. So definitely sharing that journey and kind of encouraging people to push through the tough times, even though it may not seem perfect right now. And you may feel like you're a step back from where you were last month, last year. You're still working towards your goal, and all that stuff is worth it. The journey is worth it.
Yeah, I would say another thing that practically could help is when I have people reach out to me, there's all these people who are like, oh, I've seen what you've done. I want to get involved in motorsport. I live in Malta. How do I get involved? And then I'll be like, I don't really know how you get involved in Malta, because many of them don't have a lot of funding, don't have a lot of support. So they want to start locally, which is also something that we want to promote. We want to promote you just get out and drive. So I think one thing that would probably be beneficial is trying to utilize our network. We have a big network of women drivers around the world, but being able to connect them more with teams or with people within the industry that can help them get involved. So as much as I can give just generic advice to some girl who reaches out to me, if I can do what that random guy at that oil shop did for me and gave me an email to Calabogie and was like, here, connect here, then I think that that would be a way that we should utilize our network more. And if we can connect with more teams and allies and people who are already involved in motorsport, who are happy to help guide people along and bring them out to track days, and you can just start locally, I think that would be something that we should start implementing. Is if I had places to send people. If someone's involved in Ottawa, then I know a lot of stuff in Ottawa that I can connect them with. But if someone's finds me on the internet and lives in Malta, I can't really help them. So I think that would be a next step, would be, okay, how do we grow our network from just individual women drivers to teams and people within the industry who we know are wanting to support and who have the knowledge to be able to connect the right people into the right places.
Stephen, you have a question?
Sorry, and I don't have my camera up here, but anyways, yes, thank you. Stephen Sharzer, I'm on the board of the Ottawa Sports Car Club along with Megan and some others on this call. One of the things that we've been talking about, Megan and myself and Trevor Hill, is going to, and the board of the club, is going down to Lombardy go-kart track as a group to talk to people down there. And Megan, I think, has volunteered to come down, possibly with a car. Trevor Hill has mentioned bringing down some cars as well. And what I like about this idea in relation to what you're trying to do is that I did go down there last year and I noticed that there are a lot of girls involved in go-karting. So we can reach them at this level as they're starting out and try to help connect them to motor, being on the track at Calabogie or elsewhere, motorsports in general. So if any of you would like to get involved with that, well, you're already talking to Megan. You can talk to her about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think that jump from go-karting to cars, sometimes people are like, oh, I can't afford that, or that's like going to be this big thing. But if you are someone like Megan, building those connections, start having people see possibilities and realize that it's not this big scary thing, but see women who are doing it, I think that makes a big difference to just the vision. And again, it brings it back to that representation point that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. And I also think it's like really important to have those female mentors, because a lot of the time as a woman, like in the industry, you'll kind of come across like the barriers of, are you sure you can do this? Like, do you really want to put yourself here? Are you comfortable? And you kind of need to have that person pushing you and being like, yes, you can do this. Like, obviously they're going to question you, but just go out there and like prove yourself, show your strengths, show you're going to race clean and competitively.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Megan, you've been asking us most of the questions. So would you like to answer? This is just a random question, but what would you think is something that motorsport has taught you? Being involved in motorsport, seeing your family be involved, what's something that you've grown in yourself throughout being involved?
I think one of the biggest things is actually like creating a strong headspace to put yourself in before, like the few seconds before you get into a race, before it starts. Like putting myself in a 50 car standing start in Super Production Challenge last year, that was like a big mind game, and like creating that strategy and also learning how to kind of go into a flow state and be consistent and just like really focus on what you're there to do and execute what you want to do instead of thinking about everybody else around you on track is, yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that's also like, that's such a valuable skill, obviously within competing, but then also in all these other areas of life. Like, I think that's cool that the mental fortitude that racing takes and you being all of a sudden dropped into that situation and having, yeah, that's incredible pressure and all this stuff on the line. And then on top of it all, then your safety's also there. Like, there's so many things going through your head. So to be able to have that self-belief and that confidence and that I'm here to do a job and I'm going to put myself in a good headspace is huge. And that carries into, I think, a lot of aspects of life. And that's another thing that isn't often highlighted to young people coming into motorsport. They're like, oh, it's cool, it's fast, let's go. But I think it teaches you so many valuable skills and really builds resilience that you can take with you in all sorts of different areas of life.
Right. And it's also like, okay, I'm working full time, but now I have to like try to build this whole racing career, like get sponsorship, like build decks, like somehow fit in track time. And you learn a lot.
Yeah, I would say that this past year, I learned so much on top of the driving. So the driving is obviously an aspect of it, but then you realize all the politics involved, the marketing, the networking, the promotion, like the driving's a slim part of it. It's the part that we all love and obviously want to have all our time like given to driving, but that's such a small part of it. You're learning so much business on top of it. So it's definitely an education being within the motorsport world. Nora, what do you think it was a lesson that you've learned throughout motorsport?
Oh man, I think the biggest lesson that motorsport has taught me really about life is to just never give up. Things are going to be tough, and if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. In the moments that you're not sure if you can keep going, you're not sure if you're doing the right thing, and you're working really hard, but no one seems to really be seeing it. That's kind of what shapes you as a person, as a driver, and you just need to be able to push through those moments. That's the big mental game that we've all been talking about, is be on track. It's a huge mental game, and intimidation, following someone on track, all that kind of stuff. And you're working really hard to stay mentally tough, and it's something you're going to need for the rest of your life. So I think, yeah, definitely just keeping strong, even though it may not seem like it's all working out right away. It's going to. If you're dedicated and you want it to work, it will.
Any other questions from the crowd?
I think Steven has his hand up.
There, am I unmuted?
Yep.
Perfect. Now you can see me. Greetings. Steve Bruder. I work a lot with, I do a lot of mentoring and stuff, but I also help young entrepreneurs. I'm a business mentor and the CFO for Tooth Autosport, by the way. There's my shirt. And I've listened very carefully to everything. I do a lot of mentoring, and I started because of COVID. I actually had a lot of opportunity to mentor females as well, because everything was online and you just kind of got matched up. So it was really neat, and it's from all over the world. So I believe in, it's called IEP, so Internationally Educated Professionals. So got a lot of people like, immigrating to Canada and stuff like that. And there's a lot of females with the challenges, the pay, the different things, right? So there are some differentiators, and I'm also hearing some barriers. But the barriers I'm hearing from you ladies seems similar to anybody that wants to get into motorsports. So, and then the differentiator is, well, there's not a lot of women in motorsports, but like I coach at Calabogie, I've got a car up there, you know, I officiate up there. Some of the other officials know me from there. And it's interesting because especially when you're an official, everybody's wearing a helmet. Like, you know who people are. Like, I know who Eric is. I know who Megan is and stuff like that, right? Because you know the cars and that. But I like for that, I like that. You don't see it. Everybody's got the helmet on, but it's afterwards. I don't see the what's the word here? Some of the barriers, like money, you're getting the car or driving, and the experience or support and all that kind of stuff. And what I believe it was that Atlanta might have said that there, or somebody said there was issues on like the confidence, or guys would just say, it's good, we'll do it, and yet women have a lot, maybe have that more the hesitation. So as a coach, I'm getting to a question here. As a coach, like I find the female drivers, the women drivers, they're better listeners and they execute better. So at the end of the day, in general, at the end of the day, they've had a better experience and they've learned, and they're going to be a better driver. Where some guys, the ego might be a little bit more there, and so therefore they don't really listen. So they're not getting the advantage of the corners and things like that. Okay, so my question is on the differentiators being in like women in motorsports, right? What can anybody do, men or women, okay, that would address those specific differentiators? So for example, get a car, whatever it is, that's fine. Like, as long as, like, I just think it's great. Anybody that's competitive, get out there, have fun, and compete at your level too. But for example, I don't like hearing that, especially immigrants coming in and things, and they might have a master's or something like that, and they have to start off working like cash at Walmart. It's just wrong. So where's the differentiator in women in motorsports, and what can the motorsports community and supporters do to enable more women in the sport? Because the more the better.
So honestly, I think one of the big things, and this is a story that, Erica is probably familiar with, but even like in our recent season of Formula Women, I was told that there was a lot of issues with certain people's behavior towards the women on track. And what I loved to hear about it was the fact that the officials stood by them. So the officials backed the correct thing when someone would actually, like, it's becoming significantly less common. But every once in a while you still do run into someone who is just blatantly sexist. And it was really nice to hear that the officials dealt with it and reprimanded it properly and efficiently, rather than just kind of going, boys will be boys. So it was nice to know that actually the organization was backing them as drivers.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is I actually have a personal story of officials kind of stepping in where people have their own biases on track. I was in a karting race earlier this season, and I was just blatantly forced off track by one of my competitors, and we both got called up to speak to the race director, and him and his dad went together, and they were like, oh, if she's not going to race like one of the guys, she can't race with us. And the race director shut it down immediately. He was like, nope, like, we can't have that kind of talk here at the track. It's not fair. It was rude and disrespectful, and he got ejected from the race. And I think it's something that people in that kind of position kind of need to be a little bit extra sensitive to, and like maybe look for a little more, is people that kind of use being able to hide behind the helmet or being able to hide behind an incident on track to like show their true colors. And it's been fantastic so far, my experience with officials. But 100% officials and people like that in racing they're doing a good job. They're trying their best, So.
And it happens to men as well. You get in situations of races, incidents with egos, and conclusions will be come to before the race footage, like in-car footage, is even watched. And maybe watch the video before you go and comment and ask if someone, if they should be here, if they're comfortable on track.
I think also another thing, this comes from my own personal experience, and like credit where credit's due, it's getting so much better. But just changing the general dialogue. So there was one point when I was racing dirt track that I had actually set the track record, and nothing infuriated me more than the fact that people would still say, "Oh, you're pretty fast for a girl." I was like, I'm faster than anyone who's ever been on this track before, but okay. So just simply changing the dialogue, and like, I don't know about other women, some people do really like to leverage the female thing, but like, I just want to race cars and I want to be treated as a driver. Like, that's kind of the baseline thing for me. So changing the dialogue also really helps.
I think it was Tony Bredinger.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I remember I heard, I think it was Tony Bredinger who said this. Like, once you get in a car, you have a helmet on, nobody knows if you're a guy or a girl. Like, it should be kind of the exact same once you step out of the car, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's something that we've all, at least I've experienced it, is having people make certain just judgments on you or assumptions based on your gender. And that's something that we're trying to move away from. So as you see more women involved in the sport, then it's less of a, oh, she's the girl, you know, like then you get to be known for you. I think when you show up at a track and you're the only female, then you're known as the only female and you're identified by just your gender, versus when there's more women involved, then you're Erica, you're Megan, you're Alana, you're yourself, and you're just a driver there and coming to compete. And then when you have more of that representation, there is less of that bias or the less of like, oh, you're fast for a girl. Or I've had multiple situations where I've had male competitors be very aggressive because you're a female, and then like when you beat them, they get even more aggressive. And I've had people like come, like you go to park your car and they're like they're ready to fight you. And then again, you go look at the like race official stuff and you look at the cameras and they were in the wrong, you're fine. And I've had the race officials have my back, which is fantastic. And I think that's just not cool behavior by any driver. And as it becomes more normal to have women within the sport, that becomes less of a buzz thing. And we want to make sure that motorsports is a welcoming community for anybody who decides to come, whether male, female, whatever ethnicity. We want to just be drivers. And I think that's the coolest thing about motorsport, is men and women can compete on an even playing field. Like, we're not boxing, we can both do it, you know. And you're right, helmet goes on, you're just a driver. So I think as we see more diversity in the sport and it becomes less of an issue, and as like observers, if we're not like, oh, like she's a girl, but we just talk about like, oh, they're a driver, this or that, and kind of make the person you're talking about versus just the fact that they're a certain gender. I think that kind of makes it less of a contentious issue, kind of brings more normality to females being in the sport, and makes it less of a token girl, but like, oh, they're a driver and we're used to this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. The one thing I noticed that when you said that there are, I'm just going to call them dirt balls. There's some dirtball guys that are sexist and make inappropriate comments. So I'm glad that the officials are standing up for this, because there's no place for that. I tell people, like, you hear the expression life is about relationships. Well, I say life is about relationships. Relationships are about boundaries, and boundaries are about respect. So it's good that the officials and anybody else sets the boundary that's not possible. Nora, you're sharing your story, and Eric, about guys, being aggressive in that. When I've run some VIP events at the track at Calabogie and had some female coaches, and I've had like Guy, for example, that was literally in the stairwell hitting on one of my female coaches. It's like get out of here now type of thing. And it just shocked me that I saw that. And now that when you're bringing it back, I'm not, like you said, we're all racing in that, but as soon as you get like beaten by a girl or something, there's no place for that. So I hope that like you're saying, we're all drivers, and let's just deal with it that way. You know, I'm short, so I always get picked on about how short I am, but usually no sex comments.
All right, anyone else have anything to share?
I mean, I think just one thing in general, I believe I can speak for all of us when I say that if anyone in this Zoom call ever has like a woman in their life that's interested, like have them reach out to us, refer them to us. We're so more than happy to help, more than happy to motivate and guide people.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about a Women's Day at Calabogie? We've tried this a few times, and we don't get some of the turnout that we've expected. So maybe if it came more from, you know, women in motorsports, it might be more successful, but it is sort of a come and see. And Rowan, I mean, even if we had 10 people, or one time we had like about 20, they were successful events. I mean, the ladies seem to have a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my thought process with that would be if it would be a good way to convert people who maybe would be more nervous to show up on a general track day, and like you target it as like, this is your intro, and then we're going to connect you in more with the general community, versus, and kind of take away some of the intimidation that might be, oh, I have to show up at this new track in this new environment that I don't know anyone, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do. But then if you try to, instead of just be like, oh, this is our token Women's Day, if you're like, okay, from this, we're connecting you within, if you're liking it, we're going to help you get more connected, just give you that support, which you would want to give any new driver in terms of getting them plugged in, and just knowing that this is a welcome place. I think for anyone, sometimes it's intimidating to show up at a racetrack if you haven't done it before. So just kind of facilitating more of a, okay, this is an intro and a support system to help you be given the tools you need to be able to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And I think that intro is definitely important, because historically women in male racing has kind of been separated a bit. And because we're competing in different areas, then once you put us together, it's almost like it doesn't match up, and it really does need to be blended and cohesive for all genders at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Are you finding now, and I don't know if it's a demographic of age specific, but like younger male drivers versus, you know, the old fart type of driver that thinks he knows everything, and back in the day and there was no women, are you finding that there is more collaboration, and that, you know, it's like, hey, how did you do that, or how did you do that corner, or what's some of your setup? Do you find that now, like that men are collaborating more, like, and I don't care what age the driver is, but I'm just wondering with the next generation coming up, if there is not that bias or that differentiation.
I would say, based on personal experience, yes, I would say there is a lot less bias. I would say it does depend on the individual. There's still always going to be people who have their own opinions and they're competitive. But I would say there's definitely like a kind of a mark in terms of younger generations who are just more pro women empowerment, and just like the mindset than the society they've grown up in. So that's been cool. And I think that is also why you see even more young girls getting into it. I think it's just a trickle down effect for us, where we're a step ahead based on our parents' generations. And then I think going further down, it's the same thing. It just keeps growing. So I think it's been encouraging to see that we're definitely in a trajectory towards it not being as big of a thing. Like when you talk with younger guys, it's way less of a, oh, whoa, I can't believe you're doing that. More just like, ah, badass, let's go. Like, you know, it's less of a shock.
Yeah, I think with that, the cool thing is, yes, there are still some experiences that really grind my gears and annoy me. And I know that maybe other people, like men, might not have the same experience, but I feel like especially in the past like year or 2 years, I definitely have more positive experiences than negatives. And even when something bad happens, it's like I have so many people coming to defend me that I'm like, like I'm almost feeling like more loved after, and it's all good.
Yeah. Do you think on the confidence level that some men, I don't know if women would do it, but some men, just because they're going into the race, they might be sliming the fact that they'd say, well, you're just a woman, and try to like get you out of your flow state? Do you think that's like a competitive tactic that's used?
I wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, it's like, it's annoying. But to be honest, anyone who's gonna do that is also gonna do something slimy to the guy. It's just gonna be a different form of leverage. It's gonna be like, I don't know, it's gonna be some other rude comment that doesn't have to do with his gender, because that's the thing. So I think just having advocates and having people who back us up is absolutely the most important thing, because whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, there's still going to be sucky people.
Yeah. End of the day, you are competitors, right? And like personally, my whole racing support team is males. Like my crew, my coach, everybody like I interact with in the paddock, and people I race against who are also very supportive. And even going into my season this year, I've spoken with a bunch of the males and they're all supportive. They're happy to have you there. Like it's a big difference from how it has been historically.
Mhm. Yep. Well, I for one would also like to thank all of you for being supportive of women in motorsport. I'm assuming if you're here, you're like an ally and you're wanting to see that progression and you are supporting us. So I really appreciate that. And that actually means a lot to me. And I think it can feel pretty isolating sometimes being a female within the sport. So to see the community around us and the support and all of you wanting to support us and advocate for us, that means a lot to me. So thank you all for your time and for your support of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And yeah, email us, reach out to us if you have any questions at all. If you're looking for a path into the motorsports, really, we're here as resources. So thank you.
Thanks very much. One last question. Are you going to make the recording of this available?
Yes, it will be available on the Ottawa Sports Car Club YouTube. So please link, share, send it to everyone you know.
Just before I go, I only knew 2 of you, so now it's really wonderful to know 4 of you and to be able to follow all of you. Really looking forward to seeing how you progress.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank you
lovely
so much for
evening.
joining.